Good afternoon, everyone. Join us for our monthly PropFunders community webinar. Delighted you've been able to join us for what is the live session of this. Many of our community choose to watch the recording or to catch up on the shorts to pick out the key parts. But we're always delighted when people take the time to join us live. It makes for a better webinar. As always, you can put questions or comments into the Q&A. So please use that and we'll do our best to get to your questions and um, put your comments out as well because it's live recording. We don't normally read out people's names just in case you want a bit of anonymity. But again, one and all, thank you for joining us today and delighted that our PropFunders community manager, Brenda, is here today. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Looking forward to another monthly webinar
Yep. Hmm.
to share
Yep.
your pearls of wisdom with
Well,
our team.
hopefully. I'm not sure how wise the wisdom might be, but you'll get some feedback anyhow.
All good, all good. Okay, well, look, we're going to get straight into it today. So, really, what we thought we would do today is almost take a bit of a step back and look at a bit more of a bird's eye view of the last 5 years. We've called it mapping the money, and we're going to run through some information that we hope will be relevant if you're a developer and you're considering where to look for projects, or if you're an investor and you're wondering where to invest in projects. What we have to share today in about 25, 30 minutes, I think will be hugely valuable to you. So let's just get straight into, we always start with our UK property market update. This is for June. And what were the key things, Brenda, that jumped out as you were preparing this slide?
Well, it's actually quite um, unusual. Well, not unusual, but we have had very little movement with either the house price growth or the interest rates, even inflation. A lot of it has stayed quite steady, even with all the global factors that would normally put pressure on the markets. But interest rates for mortgage rates are falling, which is good. The base rate has held, and I know inflation has steadied over the last number of months. So those are all good things that will hopefully then see a decrease even in the base rate rather than an increase. The big thing, obviously, is the regional performances, which is what we're going to focus on in this webinar. But it is a buyer's market. We would find from anecdotal evidence that people who are trying to get on the property ladder, first-time buyers, are very much being priced out at the minute by investors who are looking to buy. There's good bargains out there, so it is a buyer's market.
No, absolutely. And what's interesting is that when it comes to interest rates and lending, I think there is a degree of stability, as you've
Hmm.
mentioned. And the one thing that the property market obviously doesn't like sometimes is uncertainty, although that uncertainty can create opportunity. But certainly there was a period of every few months people waiting to see what happens next. But there
Yeah.
clearly has been quite a few months now of a relatively certain sort of base
Hmm.
rate, mortgages, rates, etc. We're in a good place in terms of stability, which is always good.
Hmm.
And then we're going to get into the regional performance, which is interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
And stock levels at a 15-year high. So as you say, it's a buyer's market. There's lots of
It
choice
is.
out there.
Hmm.
And for sure, then those that are looking to sell have to either make sure their property is attractive,
Yeah.
or have to consider dropping their price to get a sale.
Yeah. The big factor though in a lot of sales at the minute is the completions, and that just seems to be, for whatever reason, slower than it was in the past. And whether it's to do with regulatory checks or just people being slower, I don't know. But you think with all the AI help and tools and everything else that things should go faster, but they don't. So who
That's a
knows?
good point, and it still remains a huge pain point. Is just actually getting a property transaction through
Hmm.
legals, for
Yeah.
sure. So, okay, well, that's a bit of a market update. So, what we're focusing on today is this sort of regional disparity across the United Kingdom, and yeah, this first slide really highlights sort of the comparative outlay. So, in the south and southwest, probably the entry point 350,000 to get a decent property, whereas in the northwest, you might be able to get a property for down around 150,000. So I think the key thing there is, Brenda, that if someone's trying to scale, a business and want to make sure they've got diversification as well, that there's a strong case for investing in the Northwest and the regions,
Yeah,
because your money will buy multiple projects, and then therefore your risk is spread.
definitely. And say particularly our home country, Northern Ireland, 150 at the minute you probably could get maybe two properties for that. It depends where you look, it depends what areas you want to focus on. Again, local knowledge helps, but it means that there's more options for developers and investors out there. It means they can say, well, I've got this amount of money. What can I do with it? And if they're looking in and around London, it's very unlikely that they will get multiple projects. Whereas if they move further afield, Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, on into Scotland, into Northern Ireland, you will have more bang for your buck, basically, is maybe
Mhm.
a good way to put it. And again, that does do the risk diversification where you can spread. And then one project doesn't go so well, the other two or three or four can cover it and vice versa. So
Yeah, no, it's
it's
all
quite a
all
good
all really good
strategy.
points.
Yeah, and it's just an amazing time to be able to go out there and look for other properties in different regions.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it is interesting to see that such the spread of that,
Mm,
and in some regions, as you say, 100, 120, 130K could get you a property, get you started in the rental market. And then obviously with the rental market percentage to the cost of the property,
yeah.
if you're wanting yield, you really have to be in that
Mhm.
lower end market, versus someone who perhaps is going for capital growth, and they're going to put all their money into one property in the southwest. So horses for courses. There's no right and wrong, but it does give you two different strategies, two different options. But I do like the risk diversification aspect. That if you
Mhm.
buy three properties and one goes horribly wrong, well, the other two should be okay. Whereas if you put all your money into one and that one goes wrong, you're in
Yeah.
trouble.
Mhm.
And that's an important factor to be aware of. So why are developers pivoting to the north? And this seems to be, again, anecdotal, but certainly a lot of conversations recently, Brenda, with our developers, with our clients. There's more and more people either already moving sort of to the north and to the where the properties are obviously lower price, or at least considering it when they
Yeah.
didn't in the past.
Yeah, definitely. I think as I was talking to you earlier, I was talking about the 5 years that we're sort of focusing on, and that basically is from COVID times. And in COVID times, people realized that they didn't want to maybe live in cities, or they didn't need to live in cities, that there were other options. They could work remotely, they could move about. And that meant then developers were going, well, not everybody wants a house in a big city or a home or a rental property. There's other options. There's then you have the regeneration momentum that's coming through in Liverpool, cities like Manchester, where there's a lot of public money being invested in particular areas. And you also then have the high speed trains, which now makes it so much easier if you want to live in your locality but still travel into London or travel into the south to work in different places. You have those options. So there doesn't seem to be a reason not to. I think it's maybe the best way to put it. Um,
No,
before it was we can't move out of London because that's where the money is, that's where people are working, that's where people want to go. We have to follow the money, but now people are staying and going wherever.
yeah, yeah. Again, it's back to choice. They have a choice
Yeah.
of staying or moving to another area. And as was alluded to here, there are a number of areas in the north, northwest, northeast where there's sort of landmark public and private regeneration
Yeah.
schemes ongoing. That's really anchoring value across some of the
Hmm.
regions. A lot of the lenders have got an appetite, for the regions. So really, there are some strong justifications for looking at the north
Yeah, well, you look at
area.
Liverpool and the amount of money's being invested in around the river and those all of those regeneration projects that are running the full length of the riverside. and new apartments, new townhouses, everything's being built up around that. And people want to live there now. It's not as if, people are going, yeah, I want to leave my city and go to London. They want to stay in their city and they want to work in their cities and they want to be able to have good accommodation and good property there. So the developers are following where the money is. And then
Yeah,
you also
absolutely.
have the undersupply gap, which is something else we've um, focused on there. It's where there wasn't the properties before for people to live in, to want to stay, to want to be in that area because there weren't good quality properties, but now they are. But that there is an undersupply gap where people are, or where the developers are trying to catch up with the momentum of the people wanting to live in the areas.
Okay. Let me bring in some of the attendees today. So if you don't mind, stick into the Q&A, even just a comment about whether you prefer the north with a lower entry point or whether you prefer the south, London, which is your preferred strategy. And even if you indicate why, that would be really helpful for us. So if you can stick it into the Q&A for us, that would be really, really helpful. So there's no doubt that more and more developers are considering pivoting north and doing business up there. And again, when you just look at transport links are better,
Mm.
that's certainly an area where there are plenty of contractors, developers, etc. So yeah, there's a strong case for doing that. Again, depending on strategy, depending on what someone wants to achieve within their property business. Now, this is interesting because I think it really does highlight the fact that it's not just a matter of what is the average house price, but
Mm.
it's the growth among the regions. So explain this slide, please.
Well, basically, the data that we have correlated has shown that 17 out of the 20 fastest growing markets have an average house price below 200,000. So, for example, Belfast, it has been growing exponentially over the last number of months and years. We've had 6.2% growth in the market. That is borne out by our own experience here. And then we also have two other northern areas, Blackburn and Burnley, and they're pretty close behind the top performer, as it were, which is Belfast. But where you have then a more affordable property and you have a tenant in there, the the prices for the rents are still quite high. So you do have that rental resilience in there that um, allows you to take on any downturns or any interest rate shocks, anything that's going to affect your property or your yield. So your yield is going to be much more robust in those lower price properties, but you're still going to have the same high rental returns, which is quite interesting. And again, we've talked to people in the south who have properties to rent in the south, and they're finding their margins are very squeezed at the minute, where before they might have been on 8 or 9% yield, it's gone down to at least 3 to 4%, and that's a big dip.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fact that it's out of 20 fastest growing regions, 17 that in that sort of under sub 200K average house price shows that it's
Hmm.
not just one area
Yeah.
that's sort of bucking the trend, but actually the
Hmm.
trend is that the growth markets are those sub 200K average house prices. So it's where, back to what you said at the start, it's where there's more supply,
Hmm.
and therefore it's where buyers are looking to try and get a bargain, and hence that's leading into growth. Again, it's interesting that Belfast is still leading the way when it
Hmm.
comes to house price growth. And again, not surprisingly, the top three are all outside the south and outside London.
Yeah.
But certainly, it's an interesting stat to be aware of, and I think it does point to a pretty definite trend at the minute. That where the growth markets are those northern regions, certainly not London and the south.
Hmm.
So how do you find value then, Brenda? I mean, one question we get asked a lot by investors, particularly, is okay, well, all these stats are great and interest rates go up and down and different regions have different factors. That's fine, but how do you find value in what we refer to as the overlooked areas? And that's, I suppose, is well, it's the holy grail. If you can work out, where growth's going to come in the future and buy early, then
Yeah.
great. But what are
Yes.
some of the things that affect that, or what are some of the factors in that?
Well, usually it's always transport links and people's mobility and where they want to live and their ability to work in the region that they want to live in. You follow the jobs at times, you follow the transport links. So if you have somewhere, the other thing is though you have to do your homework. You have to be aware of the areas. You have to make sure that you understand the local areas, that you don't end up in an area where you got a bargain for £20,000 for a house and you think this is amazing. But then you find out that there's actually no other people in the street and that nobody wants to live there and no, you wouldn't touch it with a barge pole if you had a bit of local knowledge. So you do have to be careful that you just don't see pound signs and think that's for me. You do have to do your homework and or talk to people who have the knowledge. That's the other side of it. You look at where the government's putting money. They had last budget or two budgets ago, maybe they had released the information on which areas they were planning to regenerate, and also you look at where the train links are going, where the high speed trains are going, those areas, and you follow all of that, and that should take you down a good path as to possibly where the next areas are going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you've mentioned the regeneration zones and where the government's pumping in money, local authorities
Mhm.
pumping in money into infrastructure,
Yeah.
feeds into transport links and all the rest of it. Then, that's certainly an attractive place to invest in if you can identify those areas soon enough. And
Mm.
it's always a risk, but if you can identify areas like that soon enough, I mean, if you're out around outer London, the amount of um, regions where 20 years ago it was just a wee village somewhere,
Yeah.
outside London, whereas now it's right on the main link
Mhm.
into London, 35 minutes fast train, all of a sudden it becomes a really attractive place to own a property. So all of those can be overlooked initially, but it's making sure that you're aware of those. And again, having a strategy that goes out to look for those type of things. What is it you're looking for? And it's interesting in the first example you've given there about, the Scottish suburban belts, you
Mhm.
know, um, east,
It's not the first one you
sorry,
think about whenever you think of about a five-star asset. You don't think, oh, East
correct,
Dunbartonshire. Yeah.
correct. But the fundamentals are there, as you say.
Mhm.
There's a commuter demand, and supply is limited, and
Mhm.
therefore that's where you get compound returns.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right, and it's finding those wee jewels, I suppose, is the key. And I suppose you say, Brenda, people wouldn't normally think of the Scottish, suburban belt as the first place they would go, but
Mhm.
bargains can be found.
Yeah. Yeah. And we know that in Belfast too, that um you still have properties over here that would maybe go for 60, 70,000. However, you need to be sure that the area that you're looking at is suitable for you and suitable for tenants. And again, as I say, local knowledge is always a key thing. And if you can talk to people who know what they're talking about, then that's always a good strategy to follow too.
Yeah. And that last one you have on the slide there about sort of tactical sourcing. And
Hmm.
we obviously have a couple of clients, one main one that deals in planning uplift.
Yeah.
And obviously for that model to work, you've got to be able really to mostly be able to access and source the land off market.
Hmm.
But if you can do that, if you have a system that allows you to access tactically in certain areas, certain regions, based on what we've said in one and two, then that's where success lives in property, where
Hmm.
you can access that really good piece of land with huge potential, with planning uplift opportunities, but also in a really good location and perhaps is having, money pumped into it for regeneration or fits the bill in terms of the fundamentals, commuter, near transport links,
Yeah.
shops, hospitals, schools, and all the rest of it. So it's again tactically looking for those areas and
Yeah.
regions and not overlooking, which very
Yes.
often happens.
Yeah.
People just overlook good opportunities.
Yeah, I think too with COVID, it changed a lot of people's ideas about what they want out of life. And that work-life balance became so important. And people no longer felt that they had to travel into a large city just to find a job or just, and to do that 2, 3 hour commute every day. And some people still do, and that's fine. But there's many people now say, no, I want to make a different choice. I want to have something that suits me, but I want to stay in my local community. I want to be part of my family group and my friends. I don't want to move away from that. So they're quite willing then to live in a commuterville, basically wherever that is, and it's finding those hot spots. And we know that from looking at our own situation in Northern Ireland that there's towns outlying Belfast, which are 20 minutes outside of Belfast, which have thrived because they're commuter belts. And
Yeah.
if you can find those areas and pinpoint them, then happy days.
Yeah, no, really good point. Okay, that is some really interesting stuff there. So really sort of summarizing that, we're saying that the northern regions are where house prices still remain very often under £200,000 average house price. Talked about Scotland, Northern Ireland, and certainly there's a almost like a widening gap between London and the south, particularly the southwest, and those northern regions, and therefore that creates opportunity, it creates um, you know depending on strategy, it creates opportunity for people to move into those areas. So in terms of prop funders, how can we help either developers or investors? What is that we can do for them?
Okay, well, obviously we have quite a bit of experience in property over the years. We have good contacts throughout the property world that we know we have learned about having properties ourselves in Northern Ireland, in Scotland, in other areas that we can say, yes, we've been there, done that. We know how to do it and when to do it and all of that. We also have access to behind the curtain deals, off market deals. We have access to those. People approach us about deals. So we are in that space. We work in that sourcing and funding and structuring space. So um, use other people, use the knowledge that other people have. That's how we can support you. But there's lots of us out there that can help you get either on the property ladder or to diversify in your portfolio to say, I want to move out of London or the Southwest. I want to look at other areas. I want to see what my options are. That's what prop funders can do.
Yeah. If someone's an investor, obviously we only deal with high net worth sophisticated investors.
Yeah. Hmm.
Database, we have various cheat sheets and educational material that we provide for those type of clients. So we would need clients to self-certify as either high
Yeah.
net worth or
Yeah.
sophisticated. Doesn't take that long.
No, it's a simple process, and it's probably pretty standard for most sophisticated or high net worth investors. They know the drill, but it is something that you have to do to stay on the right side of the law, which we do.
Absolutely, compliance and regulation is so important in the modern day. And then we can arrange an onboarding call where we can get
Yeah.
a better idea of what the client's actually looking for, what type of projects looking to invest in. And there's again such a wide
Mhm.
variety from planning uplift, which obviously carries a high degree of risk, right through to ground up
Commercial.
development,
Yeah. Hmm.
refurb, commercial,
Hmm.
all of that. So different of our investor clients have different appetites, and that's fine. We're able to bring to the table the right deal that they're looking for. Legal access, then, just obviously there's important that side of it's done, and very often investors um, aren't too sure how to complete either the investment agreement or option agreement with a developer or a
Hmm.
JV. So things like that, again, we can help on the investor side,
Yeah.
and then on the developer side, we can assist the sourcing of funds and making sure that if a deal is found, if a deal is sourced, that it's not lost because the developer couldn't find the money. So we enjoy teaching and working with developers and helping them understand the different ways of accessing funding, be that senior debt, be that mezzanine second charge, be that equity, whatever it is.
Mhm.
We can try and help increase people's knowledge around that.
We do indeed.
As part of our education side, we actually have our own YouTube channel, which is our own podcast. So it's the Property Funding Podcast. It's also on Spotify. And over the probably last year and a half, we've interviewed a variety of people. We have the youngest female property developer, a 19-year-old, right through to people that have lost multiple millions in property deals, through those just starting off to experienced husband and wife teams. So it's a really good variety, Brenda, of
Hmm.
guests. And people have found this really interesting. The feedback has been phenomenal
Yeah.
on some of these.
But it's life stories too. It's not just the property side of it, it's how and the why. Sometimes say the likes of Lorraine Thomas, it was a sad situation in her life that ended up taking her down the route of property and she's never looked back. But she turned something that was quite challenging in her life into something really amazing. So it's amazing seeing those journeys for people too, where they've taken something challenges and made it better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the last ones we put up was this guy here, Angus Griffin, who used to work for the FCA. He's an FCA enforcement officer, and he has done a really good sort of an hour long talking about all the ins and outs of compliance and regulation, what it is, what it isn't. And he currently mentors in the property space. So a really good guy. But I encourage you to go on and listen to the podcast, and you'll certainly learn a lot. So our mission as prop funders, what gets us out of bed in the morning, what motivates us, it's saving property developers and investors time and money by structuring, sourcing, and simplifying property funding. So it really is about being the oil in the machine somewhat, or being that final piece of the jigsaw puzzle for a developer or an investor. But it's really about making deals happen, helping developers find funds and helping investors find the right deal to invest in. And that's the simplest way of explaining it. Anything you want to add to that, Brenda?
No, 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 I think it's, yeah. We were talking about it earlier about the sourcing, about helping, and it is about helping. That was our MO when we set out, and it still is.
Yeah, very much so. Okay, well, next steps, and again, it's absolutely brilliant for those who are able to join us live today. Really appreciate that. For anyone who wants to hear more about what we do, or have any questions or follow up, you can click the QR code there. That gets you a free 15-minute call with myself, and we have a chat about your situation. What is it you're looking for? If you're a developer looking for funding, or if you're an investor looking for the right type of deals, then reach out to us. Let's have a 15-minute call. There's absolutely, no nothing to commit to. Just literally let's have a chat. And if you find we can help you, great. And if not, then it'll be great just to meet somebody new and have that chat. So
Yeah,
you've got the bit.ly link there, free dash prop funders dash call, or you've got the QR code. So I'll give you another sort of 5 or 10 seconds just to click on that before we move on. That takes us to the final one for today. So there's my details if anyone wants to reach out to me directly, mobile or email. And we are in June. So I suppose the big news is, Brenda, when is our next webinar?
I think you can see on the screen is September. We tend to take off July and August because we know people are off on holidays and they're with their children and stuff, and that can make it a little difficult. But we still may have webinars in the month of July and August, project webinars where we're talking to some of our clients. So keep an eye out for them, and we'll have our newsletter going out too. So we'll keep you up to date with what's happening over the summer anyhow.
Yeah, it's a bit of a double whammy because in Northern Ireland they tend to be on holiday in July, but in
Yeah,
England they tend to be on holiday in August.
yeah.
So you're either we're on holiday, and then whenever we're back working, everyone else is on holiday, or
Mhm.
vice versa. So it's like, you know what, we'll just take the 2 months,
Yeah.
and we'll come back again in September. As you say, there are some project webinars to be discussed, and some interesting propositions from the investment side. So we will stay communicated through our funding focus, which goes out on a weekly basis. Stay tuned for that, and by all means, reach out to us. Any questions, any queries, we're always here to help. So, any last things, Brenda, before we wrap up?
No, that all sounds good.
Excellent. So, can I wish everyone a really good and successful rest of the week? And I'm in Northern Ireland here currently, but flying over to London tonight. So it's clear blue skies at the minute. So I'm looking forward to that flight. Might catch the sun going down, which will be nice, and hopefully London's nice and warm for the next couple of days. So again, thanks everyone for coming here today. The recording will be up as usual in about half an hour, and stay safe. Take care.